In the early 13th century, the collapse of the once mighty Ghana Empire and the shifting allegiances along the Niger Bend created a power vacuum in West Africa's interior. Among the fragmented Mande chiefdoms that vied to fill this void, the destiny of a small kingdom centered on the city of Niani would eclipse them all, giving birth to the legendary Mali Empire. That destiny was embodied in Sundiata Keita, known in the Mandinka oral tradition as the Lion King, whose rise from exile to conqueror established the political, social, and legal foundations that would underpin Mali's centuries of preeminence. Sundiata was born around 1217 to King Magan Konfata of the Keita clan and Sagalan Konde, a woman of humble origins reputed to possess mystical powers. Legend recounts that Sagalan's arrival in the royal court was prophesied, a hunchbacked woman destined to bear a son who would surpass his peers in strength and wisdom. Indeed, Sundiata's early years were marred by physical disability. He could not walk until the age of 7, yet his determination grew along with his body. As he learned to master his limp, he also absorbed the rich traditions of Mande oral history, guided by Jelly, that is griots, who imparted lessons of kinship, leadership, and the responsibilities of power. The death of Magan Konfata around 1235 precipitated a dynastic crisis. Sundiata's half-brother, the ambitious Djinguereber Mosque, ascended the throne and, influenced by jealous courtiers, forced Sundiata and his mother into exile. They first found refuge among the hunters and ironworkers of the Mande Hills and later sought asylum in the court of neighboring chiefs, weaving alliances through diplomacy and shared hardship. During this period, Sundiata matured into a formidable warrior and astute diplomat, forging a network of Mandinka nobles and forging a reputation as a champion of the oppressed. Meanwhile, the Sasso kingdom under King Semanguru Kanti had grown in power, dominating the western reaches of the Niger and exacting tribute from Mande chiefdoms. Semanguru's harsh rule and heavy taxes sowed discontent among the very peoples he subjugated. In response, Mandinka chieftains turned to Sundiata as their leader. Around 1235 to 1240, he returned from exile with a coalition of Mandinka warriors, hunters, and allied horsemen. His politics of inclusion, characterized by his incorporation of rival clans into his military command and promising fairer tribute arrangements, galvanized support across the region. The decisive moment came at the Battle of Karina, fought near the Niger floodplain, likely in 1235 or shortly thereafter. According to griot accounts, Sundiata's forces employed superior tactics, drawing Semanguru's cavalry into reeds and river channels where their horses faltered, then pressing home an infantry assault led by Sundiata himself. As dawn broke, the banners of the Keita clan flew over the battlefield, and Semanguru Kanti's power collapsed. With that victory, Sundiata transcended the role of rebel leader to become Mansa, or emperor, of a newly unified realm. In the aftermath, Sundiata established his capital at Niani, strategically located on the Upper Niger's navigable stretch. He convened a grand council of clan chiefs and codified the Kurukan Fuga, or Mandan Charter, a set of oral laws enshrining human rights, property rights, and social responsibilities. This charter not only solidified internal cohesion, but also underscored Mali's emerging identity as a polity grounded in justice and mutual obligation. Sundiata invested in infrastructure, repairing river ports to facilitate trade, patronizing iron smelting centers to supply weapons and tools, and promoting agriculture by clearing new fields and constructing granaries. By 1255, when Sundiata's reign drew to a close, whether by natural causes or through ritual abdication, Mali had matured from a loose confederation of Mandinka chiefdoms into a centralized empire controlling vital trade routes. Its wealth in gold and colonnuts began to attract merchants and scholars from the Mediterranean world, setting the stage for Mali's golden centuries. Yet, even as the founding Mansa took his place among ancestral spirits, the institutions he forged, such as the Charter, the Council, and the fusion of Mandinka traditions with pragmatic governance would endure, guiding successors through the empire's expansion, zenith, and eventual transformation. In Sundiata Keita's life and legacy lay the very blueprint of Mali's greatness. In the decades following Sundiata Keita's death, the Mali Empire entered a phase of rapid consolidation and territorial expansion, transforming from a regional power clustered around Niani into a vast state stretching from the Atlantic coast to the fringes of the Sahara. Under Munsas like Uli, also known as Wadi or Yer Lincoln, and his successors, Mali's leaders forged diplomatic alliances, launched military campaigns, and invested in trade infrastructure that would bind disparate provinces into a coherent polity. Mansa Musa, who ruled roughly from 1260 to 1270, is credited with strengthening Mali's hold on both riverine and desert routes. Recognizing the strategic importance of Kulukoro, located at the upper navigable limit of the Niger River, he commissioned the repair of docks and the construction of fortified warehouses. By ensuring safe harbor for pirogues laden with colonnuts, gold dust, and salted fish, he knit together the forested south and the Sahelian north through regular riverine convoys. Canoes could travel downstream toward Timbuktu and Gao during the flood season, then return upstream with imported salt slabs, textiles, and horses obtained from desert caravans. Indeed, it was during Yuli's reign that Mali secured its first formal alliance with the Tuareg confederations north of the Niger Bend. These desert warriors had long controlled the oases and salt mines around Tagaza, but found in Mali a reliable trading partner for gold and foodstuffs. Through marriage ties and negotiated toll arrangements, the Mansa guaranteed caravans safe passage and access to salt, an indispensable commodity for Mali's growing urban population. In return, the Tuareg supplied horses and desert intelligence that would prove invaluable in subsequent military campaigns. By the late 1270s, Mali's armies, composed of Mandinka infantry and Tuareg cavalry auxiliaries, pushed eastward to absorb the wealthy cities of Gao and Timbuktu. Gao, long an independent kingdom on the Niger's eastern reaches, fell first under a combination of diplomatic persuasion and show of force. Its rulers agreed to become vassals, paying tribute in gold and ivory. Timbuktu, at that point a small settlement founded by Tuareg traders returning from a pilgrimage to Mecca, soon caught the empire's eye. Its position, where the Niger River veered north, made it a perfect staging point for desert commerce. The incorporation of Timbuktu into Mali around 1300 marked a turning point. Rather than imposing direct rule, the Mansa installed a trusted governor who oversaw local affairs while respecting the town's customs. Mali's court sponsored the construction of the first mud brick mosque and a caravanserai to house visiting merchants. Markets expanded, drawing traders from Morocco, Andalusia, and Egypt, all eager to participate in Mali's gold trade. As Timbuktu's population swelled with scholars, jurists, and merchants, it achieved a degree of autonomy that would later fuel its reputation as the city of learning. Administratively, the empire evolved a provincial system centered on key nodes like Kulukoro, Sigu, Jen, Gao, and Timbuktu, each governed by a Dana or governor related by blood or marriage to the Mansa. These officials collected tribute in kind such as grain, cattle, and colonnuts. They also collected tribute in gold bullion, weighed on standardized scales provided by the royal mint at Niani. The tribute supported garrison troops and financed public works. Roads were cleared of brush, wells dug at market towns, and fortified outposts erected at desert oases. While direct military conquest played a role in expansion, diplomatic marriages solidified Mali's hegemony. Princesses from the Keita lineage married chiefs in the Fula and Songhai regions, creating kinship bonds that discouraged rebellion. In return, the Mansa recognized semi-autonomous councils of elders to administer local justice under customary law, integrating indigenous traditions with imperial oversight. By the early 14th century, Mali's territory encompassed the entire Niger Loop, from present-day Guinea through Mali and into Niger, and reached the Atlantic coast at modern-day Senegal and Gambia. The empire's remarkable cohesion derived from its blended approach of military prowess to deter rivals, strategic alliances with desert nomads, investment in transport infrastructure, and respect for local customs. Through these measures, Mali transformed from Sundiata's nascent realm into a sprawling, multi-ethnic empire, an achievement that set the stage for its next and greatest flourish under Mansa Musa. When Mansa Musa ascended the throne around 1312, he inherited an empire of unparalleled wealth and stability. Yet, it was his celebrated pilgrimage to Mecca in 1324 to 1325 that elevated Mali's fame to global renown, unleashed an unprecedented flow of gold into Mediterranean economies, and ushered in a cultural and architectural renaissance that would define his golden zenith. Musa embarked from Niani with a retinue that modern chroniclers estimate numbered between 10,000 and 60,000 individuals, comprising soldiers, courtiers, and commoners, alongside 80 to 100 camel loads of gold dust. Each camel carried up to 300 pounds of bullion. while Musa himself distributed gold liberally at every oasis and city. In Gao, he gifted salt slabs to local leaders. In Cairo, his largesse reportedly depressed the value of gold for over a decade. His procession included guards clad in silk and cotton robes, heralds announcing the Mansa's approach, and dozens of horses laden with gold trinkets for distribution. The pilgrimage route followed the Niger River northward to Keita and to Gaza, where he replenished his salt stocks, then veered east through Fezzan into Egypt. In Cairo, the Sultan of the Mamluks received Musa with great ceremony, granting him an audience in the royal palace. Musa funded the construction of a madrasa in Cairo and endowed local mosques, cementing Mali's reputation as an Islamic patron. The influx of gold, along with the entourage of scholars and architects Musa brought, spurred economic activity in markets, funded new religious schools, and stimulated intellectual exchange between West Africa and the Islamic heartland. On arrival at Mecca, Musa performed the Hajj rites with princely pageantry. He financed the expansion of the sacred mosque, hired water carriers to provide for fellow pilgrims, and arranged for free lodging and food along the pilgrimage routes. His devotion and magnanimity earned him respect from North African scholars, some of whom accompanied him back to Mali. Among these was the Andalusian architect Abu Ishaq, who, upon Musa's invitation, led the construction of two of West Africa's most iconic structures: the Djinguereber Mosque in Timbuktu and the Sankore Madrasah. Built of sun-dried mud bricks and reinforced with wooden beams, these edifices combined Maghrebian design elements like horseshoe arches and ornate mihrabs with local building techniques, creating a new architectural idiom. Back in Mali, Musa's return caravan carried not only gold, but also scholars versed in Sharia law, astronomy, and medicine. The Mansa established the Sankore and Sidiya madrasas in Timbuktu as centers of learning, attracting students from across the Sahel and Sahara. Manuscript production flourished, covering subjects from Quranic interpretation to mathematics, geography, and poetry. Timbuktu's libraries, housed in family vaults and community centers, became repositories of knowledge rivaling those of Cairo and Cordoba. Mansa Musa also used his pilgrimage's prestige to strengthen diplomatic ties. He sent envoys bearing letters and gifts to the Sultan of Egypt and to rulers in Al-Andalus, negotiating favorable trade agreements and ensuring the flow of luxury goods such as textiles, ceramics, and exotic foods into Mali. These ties further stimulated Mali's urban economies, transforming cities like Timbuktu and Gao into cosmopolitan entrepôts. By the time of Musa's death around 1337, the Mali Empire stood at its territorial peak, commanding the trans-Saharan routes, coastal trade with Portuguese explorers, and the gold fields of Bambuk and Bouré. Mansa Musa's pilgrimage had not only showcased Mali's immense wealth, but had also forged cultural and intellectual bridges that enriched West African civilization. His reign remains the touchstone of Mali's grandeur, a golden zenith whose ripples shaped regional politics, economics, and scholarship for generations to come. In the wake of Mansa Musa's legendary pilgrimage, and under the stewardship of his successors, the Mali Empire developed a sophisticated administrative framework that fused indigenous Mande traditions with Islamic institutional norms. This hybrid system not only sustained the empire's sprawling domains, but also underwrote its commercial dominance and nurtured an extraordinary culture of learning. By integrating governance, trade regulation, and patronage of scholarship into a cohesive model, Mali crafted an enduring template for West African statecraft. Central to Mali's administrative evolution was the office of the Mansa, whose authority combined secular and religious legitimacy. Whereas early Mansas had relied principally on lineage and ritual sanction, post-Musa rulers increasingly invoked Islamic jurisprudence to bolster their decrees. Mansas appointed qadis, that is, judges trained in Sharia law, to preside over disputes among Muslims and to ensure that commercial transactions adhered to Islamic contract law. Yet, customary courts, led by local elders versed in Mande oral charters, continued to arbitrate land issues, inheritance, and lineage matters. This dual court system allowed Mali to accommodate its heterodox population of Muslim traders and scholars alongside animist farmers without fracturing social cohesion. Provincial governance rested on a carefully tiered network. At the apex were the Dana or governors, often princes or high-ranking nobles, assigned to key economic nodes such as Timbuktu, Gao, Jen, and the gold fields of Bambuk and Bor. Each Dana maintained a retinue of military officers, tax collectors, and scribes, all accountable directly to the capital at Niani. Below them, sub-governors oversaw smaller towns and rural districts, gathering levies in grain, cattle, and gold dust. To forestall corruption and local power grabs, the Mansa instituted regular rotations of governors and sent itinerant commissioners, known as tuyuls, to audit accounts and review judgments. Failure to balance tribute led to swift replacement, while exemplary service earned land grants and court favor. Trade regulation formed the backbone of Mali's economy, and the state took an active role in securing and taxing commercial flows. The Royal Mint, operating under strict oversight, produced standardized gold ingots stamped with the Mansa's emblem. These ingots circulated alongside Islamic gold dinars imported through Mediterranean contacts, ensuring confidence among merchants. At major markets, weighed scales and calibrated weights, some inscribed with Arabic numerals, were publicly displayed to prevent fraud. Caravan permits, issued by the court, granted safe conduct across desert oases and river crossings. Unpermitted traders risked confiscation of goods or fines payable in gold. By professionalizing toll collection and securing trade corridors, Mali maximized revenue without stifling enterprise. The empire's transport infrastructure mirrored its administrative precision. Along the Niger River, a flotilla of pirogues plied between riverine ports, synchronized with seasonal flood cycles. Land routes radiating north to Tagaza and east to Kanem were policed by military detachments posted at fortified way stations. Mansa's messengers, mounted on imported Maghrebian horses, could traverse hundreds of miles in days, enabling rapid communication of royal edicts. This logistical network ensured that decrees from Niani reached provincial seats, and that reports of rebellions or market shortages returned to the capital with minimal delay. Perhaps Mali's most celebrated administrative innovation lay in its cultivation of scholarship. Recognizing that knowledge conferred prestige and practical utility, the court underwrote the establishment of madrasas alongside mosques in Timbuktu, Djen, and Gao. Instructors, some recruited from Cairo and Fez, taught Quranic interpretation, law, mathematics, and astronomy. The Sankore and Djinguereber complexes housed libraries filled with manuscripts copied by local scribes, while endowed Waqf endowments provided stipends for students and maintenance of facilities. The imperial chancery employed multilingual scribes fluent in Arabic, Mande, and Tuareg dialects, producing diplomatic correspondence that connected Mali to the wider Islamic world. Education also served as a de facto civil service training ground. Talented graduates joined the Mansa's bureaucracy as secretaries, tax assessors, or court advisors. Their mastery of written record-keeping introduced a measure of permanence into an administrative culture once reliant on oral memoranda. Over time, the integration of literacy with governance made Mali one of the few pre-modern African empires to combine the dynamism of trade with the stability of a bureaucratic state. This synergy of governance, commerce, and scholarship laid the foundation for Mali's enduring influence, echoing in West African polities long after the empire itself had waned. During the 14th and 15th centuries, as Mali's political and economic structures matured, a parallel cultural renaissance unfolded, one in which Islam, indigenous traditions, and artistic innovation intertwined to produce a vibrant society celebrated for its learning, craftsmanship, and spiritual synthesis. This era of cultural flourishing would not only define Mali's identity, but also radiate across West Africa, shaping religious practices, architectural styles, and artistic motifs for generations. The entrenchment of Islam as both a spiritual and intellectual force lay at the heart of this flowering. While the faith had first arrived with desert merchants centuries earlier, it was under Mali's auspices that Islam gained deep roots. Friday mosques, built of sun-dried mud bricks and reinforced with wooden beams, dotted the cityscapes of Timbuktu, Djen, and Gao. Their crenellated minarets and buttressed walls, modeled on Maghrebian prototypes yet adapted to local materials, became landmarks of urban life. Here, the call to prayer echoed not only as religious observance, but also as a summons to scholarly pursuit. Adjacent madrasas offered courses in Arabic grammar, theology, and law, attracting students from across the Sahel. Manuscript culture blossomed in tandem. Scribes, both Muslim and Mande, produced thousands of texts ranging from Quranic commentaries to treatises on mathematics, medicine, and astronomy. Calligraphic scripts of Kufic, Naskh, and Maghrebi adorned titles and chapter headings, while margins contained glosses in Mandinka or Soninke languages. Families wealthy from trade-endowed private libraries, often housed within family compounds, where manuscripts were copied and preserved for posterity. These repositories would later be celebrated as the hidden libraries of Timbuktu, preserving centuries of West African scholarship. Music, poetry, and oral history also thrived. Griots, custodians of communal memory, composed epic verses recounting the deeds of Sundiata Keita, Musa's pilgrimage, and the exploits of regional heroes. Their 21-string harp, known as kora, and wooden xylophone, known as balafon, accompanied recitations at court festivals, market openings, and religious celebrations. The themes of their songs, such as honor, loyalty, justice, and piety, reinforced social mores and connected contemporary audiences to a shared past. Visual arts reflected a similar syncretism. Metalworkers in Niani and Bobo Dioulasso crafted intricate gold jewelry, such as necklaces, bracelets, and decorative belts, using techniques of filigree and lost wax casting imported from North Africa. Leather craftsmen in Timbuktu produced dyed hides and elaborately tooled book covers, while woodcarvers fashioned mihrabs, that is, prayer niches, and mosque doors with geometric and vegetal patterns that blended Islamic design with Sahelian aesthetics. Textile workshops wove indigo-dyed cloths and embroidered tunics, their patterns signaling lineage, status, and regional affiliation. Cultural patronage extended beyond urban centers. Annual festivals marking the end of the rainy season or commemorating religious holidays drew pilgrims from distant provinces. In rural areas, Sufi brotherhoods, such as the Qadiriya, offered spiritual guidance and organized communal service, planting wells and mediating disputes. The integration of Sufism with Mande ritual practices created unique devotional forms, including zikir or chanting ceremonies accompanied by drumming and dance. Education and the arts were inseparable from political legitimacy. Munsas commissioned poets to compose panegyrics in both Arabic and Mandinka, ensuring their deeds were immortalized in multiple languages. Architectural monuments, like the Al-Sakawiya Mosque in Timbuktu, bore inscriptions detailing their patrons and founding dates, asserting the Munsas' reputation as a devout and enlightened ruler. By the late 15th century, Mali's cultural achievements formed a mosaic of religious devotion, scholarly excellence, and artistic mastery. The empire's commitment to Islam's intellectual traditions elevated West African learning to parity with Mediterranean centers, while its patronage of the arts fostered a distinctive Sahelian aesthetic. Even as political fortunes shifted, the cultural legacy of this era endured, carried forth by oral historians, manuscript collections, and architectural wonders that continue to inspire admiration for Mali's golden age. By the mid-15th century, the vast expanse of the Mali Empire, from the Senegal floodplain to the fringes of the Sahara, faced growing challenges along its periphery. As political authority weakened in the interior, rival powers and disaffected vassals pressed against imperial borders, waging intermittent wars that drained Mali's military resources and exposed the limits of its administrative reach. From fierce conflicts with the rising Songhai state to revolts among desert and forest vassals, these frontier struggles would prove decisive in unraveling the empire's cohesion. In the east, Gao, once a loyal vassal installed by Mansa Sakura in the late 14th century, became the nucleus of a resurgent Songhai polity. Under charismatic rulers such as Sunni Ali, also known as Ali Bar, and his successor, Askia Muhammad, Songhai armies repeatedly tested Mali's grip on the Niger Bend. Sunni Ali's campaigns in the 1460s captured key towns, including Timbuktu and Djen, wresting them from Mali's nominal control. His forces, bolstered by riverine fleets and fordable crossings, exploited Mali's overextended garrisons, outmaneuvering slow-moving cavalry with swift boat-borne assaults. By the 1470s, Gao had re-established itself as an independent kingdom, its treasury enriched by control of trans-Saharan and riverine trade. Simultaneously, to the north, Tuareg confederations chafed under diminishing imperial oversight. Historically allied as caravan partners, these desert nomads increasingly refused to remit the salt tolls that had once lubricated Mali's economy. Raiding parties descended on remote villages, intercepting traders and stripping outposts of grain and livestock. Attempts by Mansa-appointed governors to subdue the Tuareg met with mixed success. Fortified way stations proved costly to maintain, and punitive expeditions failed to bring lasting security. As the Sahara's climate became drier, competition over dwindling pasture and water deepened rifts between nomads and state authorities. In the west, Mossi kingdoms in present-day Burkina Faso seized the opportunity to press into Mali's southern provinces. Skilled cavalrymen renowned for their iron weapons, the Mossi launched annual raids on agricultural settlements around Ségou and Keita, looting granaries and taking captives to sell in coastal markets. Mali's response, characterized by dispatching hastily raised militias of Mandinka horsemen and local levies, could repel single incursions but lacked the cohesion for sustained security campaigns deep in Mossi territory. The cycle of raid and retaliation depleted rural communities, undermining tax collection and eroding the peasantry's willingness to support distant governors. Vassal revolts further exacerbated Mali's frontier woes. In the Senegal Bend, the once loyal Jollof states revolted against excessive tribute demands and heavy-handed administrative practices. Their leaders formed a loose confederation that resisted imperial governors and diverted trade toward emerging Atlantic ports. To the south, Fulani pastoralists, long tolerated for their role in moving cattle across Mali's grasslands, rebelled when forced to quarter military detachments and supply grain during drought years. These revolts were often spurred by local elites exploiting popular grievances, but they sharply constrained the Mansa's ability to project force beyond a shrinking core territory. The logistical challenges of policing such a vast domain magnified these military setbacks. Communication between Niani and distant outposts could take weeks, during which rebellions gained momentum. Provincial governors, aware that support from the capital might be slow or absent, often negotiated truces with insurgent groups or even recognized their autonomy in exchange for token tribute. Such arrangements, while temporarily restoring peace, undercut the perception of a unified empire and encouraged other regions to assert independence. By the early 16th century, Mali's frontier wars and revolts had redrawn the map of West Africa. Songhai's ascendancy had eclipsed Mali's dominance over the Niger Bend. Coastal and forest polities charted their own destinies, and the Sahara's salt caravans bypassed traditional routes. Mali's rulers, once the arbiters of trade and diplomacy across the Sahel, now held only the heartland around Niani and parts of the upper Niger. The centrifugal forces unleashed at the empire's margins had set Mali on a path of irreversible contraction, foreshadowing the final chapters of its storied history. As military pressures mounted along its frontiers, the Mali Empire confronted an equally formidable challenge in the transformation of West African and global trade networks. Once flush with the profits of abundant gold mines and monopolized caravan routes, the empire now faced dwindling bullion deposits, the rise of coastal commerce, and an evolving Atlantic economy that bypassed interior markets. These economic shifts strained royal revenues, diverted merchant confidence, and accelerated Mali's fiscal decline. Central to Mali's prosperity had been the alluvial gold fields of Bambuk, Bour, and Galam, whose rich placers sustained a steady stream of bullion from the 14th century onward. Yet by the late 15th century, accessible gold deposits showed signs of exhaustion. Miners struggled to reach deeper veins, and the return on labor declined. Efforts by the court to revitalize production through providing tools, organizing labor levies, and offering tax exemptions met with diminishing returns. Some prospectors began covertly selling unrecorded gold to coastal traders, bypassing official channels to avoid burdensome tribute rates. This leakage further eroded state coffers. Simultaneously, the emergence of Atlantic trading posts reshaped the regional economy. Portuguese navigators, having established footholds at Argan and later on the Gambia River, offered direct access to European markets. Gold, ivory, and slaves now flowed to coastal forts in exchange for firearms, textiles, and metal wares. While Mali's interior provinces continued to send goods down the Niger, merchants grew enticed by the efficiency and lower tolls of coastal routes. The Mansa's attempts to impose riverine tolls and convoys foundered when European intermediaries forged their own alliances with local chiefs, skirting imperial authority. The influx of European firearms presented a double-edged sword. Once traded exclusively for gold in trans-Saharan exchanges, guns and gunpowder now entered the interior via coastal settlements. Regional rivals such as Songhai, the Hausa city-states, and emerging Fulani confederations acquired these weapons, tipping the military balance against Mali's remaining forces. Lacking comparable imports, the empire struggled to equip its armies, relying on traditional weapons and outdated tactics. The fiscal strain of attempting to purchase firearms through intermediaries further drained the treasury. Inflationary pressures emerged as gold revenues dwindled. The Mansa's reliance on bullion to pay officials, soldiers, and scholars became unsustainable. To meet obligations, the court resorted to debasing its ingots by adding trace metals to reduce purity. The court also extended loan arrangements with wealthy merchants, who demanded steep interest rates repayable in grain or slaves. These measures undermined confidence in Mali's currency and creditworthiness. In provincial towns, merchants began demanding payment in kind, such as salt, cloth, or livestock, further complicating the empire's accounting. Agricultural shortfalls compounded fiscal woes. Periodic droughts in the Sahel reduced millet and sorghum yields, shrinking the tax base of food levies that provisioned garrisons and granaries. As rural communities experienced poverty, they fled to forest zones or coastal areas, leading to labor shortages. Governors raised the nominal tribute rates to compensate, provoking peasant resistance and occasional uprisings. Each suppression required military expenditure, creating a vicious cycle of fiscal attrition. By the dawn of the 16th century, Mali's economy had undergone a profound reorientation. The centrality of gold as the empire's lifeblood diminished, supplanted by the burgeoning Atlantic trade and the rise of regional marketplaces. The court's inability to adapt fully to these new realities, either through reforms in taxation or through more flexible alliances with European traders, left Mali vulnerable to both internal decay and external conquest. As gold mines continued to yield less and coastal routes siphoned off commerce, the empire's financial foundations crumbled, setting the stage for its fragmentation. After Mansa Musa's golden age and the orderly successions that followed, the Mali Empire entered a protracted period of dynastic instability beginning around the mid-14th century. As the lush promise of Sundiata's foundation and Musa's pilgrimage faded into memory, rival factions within the Keita lineage and powerful provincial elites vied for the vacant throne. These succession struggles not only undermined the central authority of the Mansa, but also encouraged centrifugal forces across the empire's far-flung provinces, leading to fragmentation that would presage Mali's irreversible decline. The first notable rupture occurred upon the death of Mansa Musa in the 1360s. Unlike his predecessors, whose patrilineal legitimacy was widely accepted, Musa left behind multiple claimants, each backed by competing court factions, some aligned with the clerical establishment in Timbuktu, others with the military aristocracy around Niani. Fierce palace intrigue resulted in short-lived reigns. One Mansa was deposed within months, another assassinated during a state banquet. Such turbulence disrupted the smooth transmission of power and eroded the sacrosanct aura that had once shielded the imperial throne from open contestation. As news of the court's discord spread, provincial governors began to assert greater autonomy. In Gao and Timbuktu, provincial governors fortified their own citadels, maintained private militias, and took to minting local gold ingots bearing regional emblems. In some regions, rival claimants to the Mansa sent emissaries to secure pledges of loyalty from these governors, who in turn extracted higher tributes in exchange for nominal recognition. The once unified chain of command from Niani to Tagaza splintered into semi-independent fiefdoms, each jockeying for position in the imperial power vacuum. Compounding these fissures was the growing assertiveness of non-Keita elites. Prominent merchant families in Timbuktu and Djen used their financial clout to influence judicial appointments and court decisions. They occasionally financed pretenders to the throne, seeking concessions such as reduced tolls or monopolies on key commodities. Religious scholars, emboldened by the proliferation of madrasas, also weighed in. Some supported putative rulers who pledged stricter enforcement of Sharia, while others aligned with traditionalist factions defending customary law. The interplay of economic, religious, and political interests fractured the empire's ideological cohesion. Meanwhile, external observers sensed opportunity. The Songhai state under Askia Muhammad, already independent since Sunni Ali's conquests, sent envoys to Mali's court at Niani, ostensibly to negotiate trade pacts but also to monitor the empire's vulnerability. Fulani clans in the western grasslands, once tributary pastoralists, withheld cattle levies when the court failed to protect grazing rights. Mossi warlords resumed raids on southern provinces, no longer deterred by a unified Mali defense. Each incursion further weakened the empire's perimeters, and each local concession to pacify rebels chipped away at the Mansa's prestige. Efforts to restore stability met with only temporary success. Well-meaning rulers attempted to convene a grand council of clan chiefs and Quranic jurists at Niani, hoping to codify succession rules and reconcile rival factions. Though these assemblies produced charters reaffirming the primacy of matrilineal inheritance and outlining regency protocols for underage heirs, their resolutions rarely held sway beyond the capital. As soon as a new Mansa ascended, often a teenager thrust into office amid gunpowder-laden court rivalries, grand promises gave way to the exigencies of maintaining a precarious power balance. By 1500, Mali's territorial reach had contracted dramatically. Provincial capitals like Gao and Jen functioned as de facto independent states. Coastal polities and forest kingdoms had ceased tributary payments altogether. The core around Niani and Kulukoro remained under the Keita's nominal control, but its population was decimated by urban flight, agricultural decline, and the breakdown of public order. What endured was little more than the ceremonial trappings of Mansa-ship, a title invoked by local potentates more for its residual prestige than for its actual authority. The succession struggles and ensuing fragmentation of the 14th and 15th centuries thus marked the terminal phase of Mali's coherence, opening the door to the empire's final eclipse at the hands of ascendant regional powers. As the 16th century dawned, the Mali Empire, the venerable steward of West African gold, scholarship, and statecraft, had been reduced to its heartland around Niani. In stark contrast, the Songhai Empire to the east surged forward, filling the power vacuum on the Niger Bend and establishing itself as the region's preeminent force. Songhai's rise under the reign of Askia Muhammad from 1493 to 1528 was meteoric. Building upon Sunni Ali's military conquests, Askia reformed state administration by centralizing tax collection, standardizing currency, and instituting Islamic legal courts throughout his realm. His capital at Gao became a vibrant hub of commerce and learning, rivaling Timbuktu's former glory. When Askia's armies swept west, they met little effective resistance from a Mali polity weakened by years of dynasty disputes and economic strain. Key towns such as Jen shifted allegiance without bloodshed, while fortified posts at Kulukoro and Niani were bypassed in favor of controlling trans-Saharan routes and riverine choke points. By 1530, Songhai's dominion extended from the Atlantic coast to Hausaland and down the Niger into the Kaya Maga goldfields. Mali's Mansa retained only a ceremonial title, largely confined to local ceremonies and ancestral veneration. The final Mali ruler of note, a Mansa named Mahmud III, is remembered in oral chronicles as a patron of a small scholarly circle, but not as a sovereign with geopolitical influence. Meanwhile, Timbuktu and Jen, once Mali's jewels, flourished under Songhai rule, their madrasas continuing to attract students, albeit now financed by Gao's treasury rather than Niani's. Yet, Mali's eclipse did not erase its contributions. The administrative blueprints devised under Sundiata and refined under Mansa Musa, such as provincial governorships, dual legal systems, and revenue farms, were inherited and enhanced by Songhai. Askia's appointment of qadis mirrored Mali's integration of Islamic jurisprudence, while his use of provincial commissioners harkened back to the Tuyuls who once audited Mali's governors. The gold standard weight measures and minting conventions established at Niani informed the coinages of later West African polities, creating a continuity of monetary practice that facilitated regional trade. Culturally, Mali's influence endured in the manuscript libraries painstakingly assembled in Timbuktu. Even under Songhai patronage, these hidden libraries preserved treatises copied during Mali's heyday, works on theology, mathematics, astronomy, and poetry that remained authoritative well into the 17th century. Griot traditions continued to recount Sundiata's epic, while architectural motifs like earthen minarets and wooden toran beams persisted in new mosque constructions. The Sankore and Djinguereber complexes, products of Mansa Musa's patronage, remained living centers of scholarship. Moreover, Mali's pluralistic approach to governance, characterized by balancing Islamic and customary law, set a precedent for future states. The succeeding Saadi dynasty in Morocco, which briefly invaded Songhai in 1591, encountered bureaucratic systems and legal pluralism they recognized from their dealings with Mali generations earlier. In the centuries that followed, West African states such as the Bambara kingdoms and later, the Sokoto Caliphate, would blend local traditions with Islamic institutions, echoing the Mali model. Ultimately, the Mali Empire's final ebb was not an end, but a transformation. Its political structures, economic networks, and cultural achievements became the substratum upon which succeeding empires built. Even as its capitals fell silent and its frontiers receded, Mali's legacy, inscribed in stone, parchment, and oral lore, continued to guide West Africa's journey. Thus, the story of Mali's twilight is inseparable from the region's broader narrative of adaptation, resilience, and renewal. Thank you for embarking on this voyage through the rise, splendor, and twilight of the Mali Empire. If you've enjoyed uncovering the legends of Sundiata, the grandeur of Mansa Musa, and the intricate tapestry of West African history, make sure to like this video, subscribe to Ancient Odyssey, and ring the bell so you never miss an adventure. Share your thoughts below. What fascinated you most about Mali's story? Join us next time as we set sail for new horizons in history's greatest tales. Until then, keep exploring.